If you're the one your family always calls when they need money, this story is for you. Not the golden child, not the rebel, the responsible one, the one with the good job, the stable life, the one who can help out, just this once. One Tuesday, my parents called with a family emergency. The bank was about to take their truck. $5,000 would fix everything. They expected me to do what I'd always done: move money, patch the hole, swallow the guilt. But that day, I said no. They didn't know I'd already found the secret credit cards in my name, the debts they'd buried under my social security number, and the spreadsheet that proved this wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. My name is Hannah, and this is what happened when I stopped paying my parents' bills and let consequences finally catch up with them. They called on a Tuesday. That already told me something, because my parents only ever called during the week when they wanted money. If it was just to gossip or brag about my brother, it could wait until Sunday. But a random Tuesday afternoon, 3 missed calls, and then a text that said, "Call me ASAP. Family emergency?" That was a money day. I stared at my phone on my desk at work. I could see my mum's voicemail transcription previewed on the screen. "Sweetheart, we really need your help. It's serious. Call us back, okay? Love you." My chest tightened in that familiar way. Dread dressed up as guilt. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and hit call. Mom picked up before the first ring even finished, like she'd been sitting there with her finger hovering over the screen. "There you are," she said, already halfway into a sigh. "I've been worried sick. You didn't answer my calls." "I was at work," I said. "Like I am every weekday at 2 in the afternoon." She ignored that. "Listen, your father and I are in a situation. The bank messed up the payment schedule on the truck, and now they're threatening to repossess it. We just need a little help to get current. 5,000 will cover everything, and then we'll be fine." In the background, I could hear my dad muttering something about "damn banks" and "we raised her," like I was a bad investment suddenly underperforming. 5,000. They always said it like it was the price of a pizza. My stomach did that old familiar twist, the one that came with the mental math of, can we cover that? What does that do to our savings? How long to rebuild again? For years, my next move was automatic. Open the banking app, move money, patch the hole. But I didn't reach for my phone this time. My hand just stayed in my lap. "Are you there?" my mum demanded. "Hello?" "I'm here," I said. My voice sounded weird to my own ears, flat, steady. "And I'm going to say something you're not used to hearing from me." There was a beat of silence. "I'm not giving you any more money. Not this time. Not ever again." She sucked in a breath like I'd slapped her. My dad's voice got louder in the background. But before I tell you how that conversation ended, you need to understand how we got to a Tuesday where my own parents were basically cold calling me like a payday lender. Because this wasn't about a single $5,000 bailout. This was about a lifetime of entitlement that I'd been subsidizing since I was old enough to sign my name. Growing up, my parents used the word sacrifice like a coupon they could redeem forever. Every story about my childhood was framed like an invoice. "We gave up so much for you, Hannah. We never took a real vacation. We worked so hard so you could have opportunities." All of that had some truth to it. They did work hard. My dad drove trucks. My mom worked retail. And money was always tight. But from very early on, I learned there was a difference between struggling with your kids and resenting them like a bill you can never pay off. In our house, nothing was a gift. Everything was a future debt. When I got a scholarship check my first year of college, my mum cried tears of joy. and then told me they needed to hold on to it to cover some back rent and utilities, just until Dad's hours picked up again. It wasn't tuition. The school had already taken their part. This was the leftover refund check, in my name, for books and living expenses. I never saw that money again. When I got my first tax refund, she said, "Oh, perfect. That'll catch us up." My name was on the check. Her name was on the bills. Somehow that meant it was obviously hers. Every time the same line. "After all we've done for you, you don't want us to be out on the street, do you?" You'd be amazed how fast a 19-year-old will hand over a refund when you phrase it like that. Back then, I told myself, they're struggling. I'll help now, and later, when I have a career, things will stabilize. I didn't realize later never comes when someone sees you as their emergency fund with legs. The first big wake-up call should have been my wedding. I didn't have one of those fairy tale weddings you see on Instagram. We had a small ceremony at a local venue with a modest reception. My husband, Mark, and I were paying for most of it ourselves, and we were very clear about our budget. My parents had 2 conditions for attending. 1, they wanted to handle the guest list from their side. 2, they wanted all the cash gifts. They framed it as tradition. The parents get the envelopes, the kids get the toaster and the blender. They even said it like they were doing us a favor by letting us keep the stuff. Mark and I said no, politely at first, then more firmly. We explained that we were starting our life together and needed the money more than they did. Mum took it as a personal attack. "Oh, so we're just… what? Wallets to you," she snapped. "We raised you, we changed your diapers, and you're nickel and diming us over a few $100s? You're embarrassing us in front of the family." She said that a lot. "You're embarrassing us." What she meant was, "You're not going along with the script where we get what we want, and you smile through it." In the end, we compromised on the guest list. Translated, we gave her most of what she wanted because it wasn't worth the fight the week before our wedding. But we stood firm on the gifts. Or so I thought. At the reception, when I finally sat down for 5 minutes to breathe, I noticed the envelope box was gone. I figured maybe the venue had moved it for safekeeping. Mum found me about an hour later. She was glowing in that way that meant she'd just gotten her way. "Don't worry about the envelopes, honey," she said, patting my arm. "I've got them. We'll bring them by tomorrow." Mark went white. I could feel him stiffen beside me. "Mum?" I said slowly. "We talked about this." She smiled tighter. "You don't want to be counting money on your wedding day. It's tacky. We'll take care of it. You can trust your own parents, can't you?" The next day, they dropped off a gift bag with a photo frame, a towel set, and a card with $20 in it, from us. "That's all there was," Mum said breezily when I asked about the rest. "Most people gave household items. Young couples don't really get cash in envelopes anymore." She said it looking everywhere but my face. I never saw a cent of that money. Later, my cousin mentioned how generous everyone had been. How, "You must have gotten a ton of cash, right?" I lied and said we were grateful for everything. Mark never forgave them for that. I did, at least on the surface. I was still in the business of giving them the benefit of the doubt and paying for peace. But I started to keep quiet mental notes. Not numbers, not yet. But a growing sense of imbalance I couldn't quite ignore. Then our daughter was born, and my parents found a whole new way to turn family into leverage. The first week home with a newborn is a blur of exhaustion and bodily fluids, even in the best circumstances. Add my mother into the mix, and it went from chaotic to suffocating. She announced, not asked, that she would be staying with us to help for at least 2 weeks. I was too tired and raw to argue. Mark tried to set some boundaries. No posting baby photos online without our consent. No surprise visitors. Let me handle nights so you two can sleep. And she steamrolled every single one. On day 3, while I was trying to breastfeed and crying because it hurt and nothing was latching right, she was in the living room giving a tour of our apartment to 2 of her friends I'd never met. "Isn't she just a little doll?" She cooed loudly enough for me to hear through the wall. "I told Hannah she owes me big time for all this help. I'm practically raising this baby for her." Her help looked a lot like holding the baby only when she was quiet, making comments about my postpartum body and leaving dirty dishes in the sink. The one thing she did consistently was take pictures, hundreds of them, most of which ended up on Facebook with captions like, "Look what we made," as if she'd personally gone through labor. 2 weeks in, she made her pitch. "So," she began, casually flipping through her phone, "I've been thinking, I really need a new car. Mine is on its last legs, and I can't be driving your precious granddaughter around in something unsafe, right?" I looked at her. "Where is this going, Mom?" She sighed like I was slow. "Well, you two make good money, and you don't have a car payment right now. I figured you could help me with a down payment. Something reasonable. Nothing fancy. Maybe 10,000? 10,000. Like she was asking to borrow an egg. "I'm on unpaid leave," I reminded her. "We're living off savings and Mark's salary. We're fine, but we're not handing out $10,000 for a car." She narrowed her eyes. "After everything I've done for you this month? The nights I stayed up? The housework?" "You sleep through the nights," Mark said quietly from the doorway. "And I do the housework." She chose to ignore him. "I see," she said, shoulders stiffening. "So that's how it is. The way you're treating me. Don't be surprised when I'm not available next time you need something." It didn't hit me until later. She really believed her presence was a loan I would have to repay with interest. The car conversation ended in an argument. She went home early, posting a vague status about some people forgetting who was there for them. On the surface, life went back to normal. If you consider random financial demands and guilt trips normal. There were emergency dentist bills, unexpected rent hikes, a sob story about my brother losing his job and needing just a bit until he got back on his feet. He never called me himself. Mum just sent me his routing number with a little heart emoji and, "You know we have to help your brother. He's going through so much." When he finally texted, it wasn't "thank you." It was just, "got it," followed a week later by photos of a weekend trip with his friends. Every time I tried to say no, the same refrain. "We sacrificed so much. We can't believe our own daughter would let us struggle." For years, I caved more often than I didn't. Each time I told myself it was the last. I finally hit my real breaking point the day a stranger at a furniture store knew more about my credit than I did. Mark and I had gone to buy a new couch. Nothing extravagant. Just something that didn't have goldfish crumbs permanently embedded in the cushions. We found one we liked. The salesman ran our info, and then he looked up with this sympathetic half smile and said, "I'm sorry, Mom. It's been declined. Do you want to use a different card?" "It must be a mistake," I said. "We have excellent credit." He hesitated, lowered his voice. "Your score dropped pretty significantly a while back. There are a few delinquent accounts here. Store cards, it looks like. One at an electronics place, a department store. They're several years old." My ears rang. I hadn't thought about my credit in years. We'd been renting month to month from a private landlord who never ran a report. Our car was already paid off, and we weren't house hunting yet. I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. I don't open store cards. I don't impulse finance. I track every bill like it's a patient's medication schedule at work. "Can I see?" I asked, my voice too calm. He turned the monitor a bit so I could read the list without seeing the actual numbers. The names of the stores jumped out first, places my parents loved. The dates lined up with random boasts I half remembered. The year they suddenly had a massive new TV. The miracle Christmas, where they could suddenly afford presents for the entire extended family. The weekend cruise they won in a raffle. On paper, I had opened those cards. On paper, I had maxed them out and never paid them back. I felt like I was going to be sick. At home, I pulled my full credit report. 3 accounts I never opened, all in collections. All using my social security number and a version of my old address. It was like looking at a crime scene where all the evidence pointed to you. But you knew you didn't pull the trigger. There are only a few people who ever had access to my social security number, my paperwork, and a reason to feel entitled to everything I had. My parents were at the top of that list. When I called my mum about it, she didn't even sound surprised, just annoyed. "Oh, that," she said. "We meant to tell you. We thought you knew about those cards." "You opened accounts in my name without telling me," I said, each word tightly packed. "You used them. You didn't pay them. My credit is wrecked." "You're being dramatic," she replied. "We always planned to pay them off. The interest rates just got out of control. Besides, it helped your credit at first to have more accounts. And you're fine, you've got a good job. They'll understand." "They who?" I demanded. "Future landlords? Banks? The couch guy?" She huffed. "I can't believe you're attacking us over this, after everything we've done for you. We thought we were family." That's when something in me snapped. Not in a screaming, throwing things way. More like a lock sliding into place. I realized in that moment that my parents didn't see this as theft. They saw it as rearranging assets within the family. My credit was just another shared utility. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Then I opened a spreadsheet. Some people keep journals of their feelings. I started keeping a ledger of my parents. At first it was just the fraudulent accounts, dates opened, last payments, charge-off dates, balances. Then I started adding old loans I'd helped them with. 500 for tuition here, 1,000 for car repairs there, the wedding envelopes, the disappearing scholarship check, the emergency rent payments. I added notes on what they'd said each time. "I thought you'd want to help. You know we'd do the same for you. We sacrificed so much. You don't want us to be homeless, do you?" I went back through old texts, bank transfers, even Facebook messages where they'd thanked me in that passive-aggressive way. "You came through like a good daughter should." I recorded it all. By the time I was done reconstructing the last 10 years, the total had 5 digits, not counting the emotional interest. Looking at that spreadsheet was like finally seeing my childhood and adulthood in numbers instead of fog. They hadn't hit a rough patch. They had built an entire lifestyle on the assumption that I would cover the gaps. I took the report to a free legal clinic and asked about my options. The lawyer was kind. She went through the accounts with me, explained how fraud disputes worked, and gently asked, "Are you prepared for what happens if they deny it and your parents have to testify? Or if they admit they did it?" "I don't know," I admitted. "They're my parents." She nodded. "You don't have to decide about charges today, but you should absolutely freeze your credit, put fraud alerts on your file, and dispute accounts you never authorized. You're allowed to protect yourself, even from family." In the end, I did exactly what she said. That night, I went home and froze my credit, put fraud alerts on all 3 bureaus, and started disputes on every account I never opened. But I stopped short of pushing for criminal charges. The idea of dragging my own parents into court made me sick. I wasn't trying to see them in handcuffs. I just wanted a wall between their choices and my future. Around the same time, my therapist used a phrase I'd never applied to my own life: financial abuse. It's still abuse, she said, if someone uses guilt and obligation to control your resources, especially when they sabotage your future stability to maintain their present comfort. She suggested I write a letter, not to send at first, just to make it real on paper. Everything they'd done, everything it cost me, and what I needed to do now. That letter became the backbone of what I said the Tuesday they asked for $5,000 to save the truck. When my mum finished her speech about the bank and the mean loan officer, there was a long silence. "Well?" she pushed. "We don't have all day. They said if we don't pay by Friday." "I heard you," I said. "I'm sorry you're in this position, but I'm not giving you any more money." My dad's voice barged into the conversation then, loud enough to distort through the speaker. "What the hell does that mean? We raised you, Hannah. You wouldn't even have that fancy job if it wasn't for us. You owe us." "No," I said quietly. "I don't." "You ungrateful—" I cut him off, calmly. "I've transferred thousands of dollars to you over the years. I covered late rent, car payments, utilities. You took my scholarship check. You took our wedding money. You opened credit cards in my name without telling me and never paid them. My credit is damaged because of decisions I never agreed to. That stops today." For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing. Then my mom launched into it. "We thought you knew. We're your parents. We would never steal from you. How dare you throw that in our faces when we're asking for help? Families help each other." "I agree," I said. "Families help each other. But you haven't been helping me. You've been using me. There's a difference." She scoffed. "Listen to you. Using me. Who filled out your college applications? Who watched your daughter so you could go back to work? Who—" "And I'm grateful for the things you did," I said. "But they weren't investments with guaranteed returns. They were part of being parents and grandparents. You've been treating every nice thing you ever did as collateral you can cash out whenever you want. That's not how this works." My dad tried a different angle. "So what? You're just going to sit there with your big savings account and let your own parents lose their truck? You want people to see us walking? Is that it? You want us humiliated?" "I'm not responsible for whether or not you lose your truck," I replied. "The bank didn't repossess it because I said no today. They're repossessing it because you missed payments. That's not my consequence to carry." "You cold-hearted bitch," he snapped. There it was, the real them. "If you keep calling me names," I said, my voice finally shaking a little, "I'm going to hang up. I called to tell you clearly, not fight. From now on, I'm not giving you money. I've frozen my credit, so you won't be able to open anything new in my name. I'm disputing the fraudulent accounts. If you keep harassing me, I will limit contact." "Limit contact," my mum repeated, outraged. "You're going to cut off your own parents? Over some paperwork?" Over some paperwork that represented years of theft they didn't even recognize as theft because it came wrapped in the word family. "I don't want to cut you off," I said honestly. "But I will protect my family, the one I chose and the one I'm raising, even if that means protecting them from you." They yelled, they cried. They called me dramatic and heartless and brainwashed. They brought up every sacrifice, real and imagined, from the last 3 decades. "I'm going to send you an email," I said finally, when my throat hurt from repeating myself. "It will explain everything I've just told you, in writing. If you want to talk after you read it, and you can do it without insulting me or asking for money, we can try. Otherwise, I'm done having this conversation." Then I did something I'd never done in my entire life. I hung up on my parents. The email took me 3 hours to write. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the spreadsheet open on one side and a blank document on the other. Mark put our daughter to bed and then sat across from me, quietly scrolling on his phone, occasionally squeezing my foot with his. I started with the facts. I listed every loan I'd given them over the years, with approximate amounts and dates. I attached screenshots of the fraudulent accounts from my credit report. I quoted their own texts back to them, the ones where they'd admitted opening cards for convenience, where they'd promised to pay it back soon, where they'd guilted me for hesitating. Then I explained how it had affected me. The apartments we couldn't apply for because my credit score tanked, the higher interest we had to pay on our car, the anxiety every time an unknown number called, wondering if it was a collector. I didn't curse. I didn't name-call. I didn't dramatize. I just laid out the evidence, like a case file. Finally, I wrote my boundary as clearly as I could. From this point forward, I will not be giving or lending you money. I will not co-sign any loans or accounts. I have frozen my credit to prevent further unauthorized use. If you contact me, it cannot be to ask for money or belittle my decisions. If you continue to do so, I will block your number and restrict contact to email only. I love you. I wish things were different, but I will not continue to be financially abused in the name of family. I CC'd Mark, so there could never be an accusation that I'd twisted the story behind his back. Then I hit send. Their responses were predictable. My mum sent a wall of text about how I'd been poisoned by therapists and rewriting history. My dad sent a shorter one. "You're dead to me until you apologize." Then came the cousins, the aunt I hadn't spoken to in months, even my brother, the golden child, chiming in with, "Wow, guess money really changed you." I didn't defend myself. I had one reply saved in my notes app, and I pasted it to everyone who tried to drag me into the group guilt. "I'm not discussing my finances or my decision with anyone else. I've set a boundary with my parents. You don't have to agree with it, but you do have to respect it. This topic is closed." A few kept pushing. I blocked them. At first, my parents doubled down. Group texts painting themselves as victims. Facebook posts about friends who step up when family turns their back. Translation: someone else had given them money, temporarily. Within 3 months, they'd sold the truck anyway. And the jet skis. And a lot of the fancy electronics they'd always insisted they deserved because they worked hard. A cousin mentioned in passing at a barbecue that my parents were thinking of downsizing, which was a nice way of saying they were losing the house. A few weeks later, I drove past my old street on the way to a friend's house. The for sale sign was gone, and someone else's car sat in the driveway. A sensible little sedan where my parents' shiny truck used to be. I caught a glimpse of my mother at a bus stop across town a few days after that, waiting with 2 grocery bags in her hands. For 1 second, she looked right past me, like I was any other stranger in traffic. For the first time in my life, I didn't step in to fix their choice. I felt not happy, exactly, but not guilty either. The funniest part, and by funny, I mean darkly ironic, was what happened with my brother, the golden child, the one they always held up as the example of how I should act. He called me one night, 6 months after my big boundary email, sounding more exhausted than I'd ever heard him. "They tried to move in with us," he said. "Just showed up with boxes and said we have more space. They told me you wouldn't help them anymore because you're selfish." "What did you say?" I asked. "I said no," he replied. "I don't have space, and I'm not signing up for what you went through." They called me ungrateful and lazy. Mom said, "At least Hannah paid us back." "Paid you back? For what?" I asked. "For being born, I guess," he said bitterly. "Anyway, I just wanted you to know. I get it now. I should have had your back sooner. We're not best friends now." But that call felt like a small, quiet closing of a circle. My parents still send the occasional email. They never apologize. It's always some version of, "We miss you. Your father's health isn't great. We'd love to see our granddaughter. We can put the past behind us if you stop being so stubborn." Sometimes they tack on a request at the end, almost like a reflex. "If you could help us with insert new bill here, it would really show you care." I don't answer those. Sometimes I open the old spreadsheet, not to punish myself, but to remind myself I didn't imagine it, that the pattern was real, that the line I drew was necessary, not cruel. When I walk through our house now, the house we qualified for after I cleaned up my credit, disputed the fraudulent accounts, and waited for the score to climb back up, I feel something I never felt in my parents' home: security. Sometimes I still grieve the parents I wish I had, the ones who would have been proud without keeping a tally, the ones who would have said, "We're okay, keep your money, focus on your own family." But cutting them off wasn't about punishing them. It was about resigning from a job I never applied for, being their full-time safety net while they jumped off financial cliffs for fun. I didn't call their boss, cancel their truck, or sign their foreclosure papers. I didn't whisper in a banker's ear or hex their credit score. All I did was stop standing between their choices and the natural fallout. People like to say karma's some mystical force that comes around eventually. In my case, it was much simpler. Karma was what finally reached them when I stopped absorbing the impact. I didn't ruin their lives. I just let them live with the consequences of the life they chose.